I've been playing Fire Emblem for a few years now, and I'd really like to put some personal anecdote or maybe incorporate some recent Fire Emblem news to segue into this topic, but I'd rather get straight to the point. Today, I want to talk and analyze the hell out of one of my favorite chapters in the entire series. Chapter 11 from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Blood Runs Red. It's great structurally, it introduces themes that add layers to the world, and its use of gameplay for storytelling is phenomenal. So let's dive in and dissect why I believe this chapter hits all the right notes. But before we do, just want to leave a disclaimer here. This video will contain major spoilers for Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, so I highly recommend you play the game before watching this video. And with that out of the way, let's get right into it. The chapter opens up with the Grail mercenaries passing through rural Crimea to board a ship that will take them to Benyan. At this point in the story, Ike's home nation has been overrun by Dayan. However, the psyche and the townspeople of this small port town is very intriguing. Ike expects them as Crimeans to be panicked, fearful, sad. Their country has been overrun by the enemy, but instead they go about their lives as if nothing happened. Who happens to be in charge doesn't really matter to the villagers. As long as they can work their fields and stay alive, they're content. This disconnection between the people and the nation provides a new perspective on Crimea and its inhabitants. But the game takes it even further, as racism, which at this point in the story has only been mentioned in passing, rears its ugly head on a large scale, as many of the villagers refer to the shapeshifters, called Lagoos in Path of Radiance, as subhumans and discriminate against them. And the sentiment runs so deep that many of the villagers you talk to would rather side with the human invaders from Dayan than their Lagoos allies. Remember, these are citizens of Crimea, the nation you are trying to save. So to see them beat a Lagoos in the streets really adds shades of grey to the story and what you're fighting for. It doesn't all need to be dramatic themes. Hell, I think one of my favorite interactions in this chapter is with a local vigilante group that has fun banter with Ike before facing him down on the battlefield. Just even knowing the attitudes and the feelings of the local Crimeans helps make the world feel more alive, and I love how the game explores themes like this. It builds the world while adding spice and flavor to a fairly typical tale. So after all of that conversation with the villagers, the actual gameplay commences, and the goal is fairly simple. Arrive at the ship at the other end of the map, but it's the multiple gameplay events scattered throughout the chapter that keep it constantly fresh and fun to play. As soon as the level begins, the player is immediately presented with alternative objectives, recruiting Zahark and visiting the multiple houses scattered through the map. The game makes these objectives clear. Zahark has a unique portrait, speaks before the chapter, and the fact he even has a name will indicate to most players that you can bring him to your side. However, they may have forgotten about the houses, so the designers made clever use of a thief who will burn down the farthest house on turn 2. Slow enough to give the player time to visit the other houses or to reach the house before it burns down, but fast enough to provide a challenge to those who want to reach it. So, we have 3 tasks the player is keeping in mind: recruiting Zahark, visiting the houses, and reaching the boat. This keeps the chapter from staling over its duration. There is always something you can do to accomplish one of the many objectives. You're never idly fighting enemies just for one objective. Within the first couple of turns, the player will have completed what they want, so they're gonna head for the boss. But to continue interest, on turn 4 a conversation appears between Jill and Har of Dayan, and Jill enters the map. Now the player is once again faced with a dilemma: go after Jill or continue to pursue the boss. It prevents a meaningful decision to the player. Do they want to create trouble for themselves and go after Jill, or pass it up and focus on the objective? The developers honestly are fairly mean here, because if you choose wrong and kill Jill in this chapter, it means you can't recruit her in the next one. It's a small distraction from the main objective, but it forces the player to make a decision that has real consequences even if they don't know it. But then, just as the intrigue with Jill fades and you reach the boss, the real genius of this chapter emerges, and that is the Black Knight. Now at this point in the story, the Black Knight has killed Grail in front of Ike, and that's enough to show the player he's a force to be reckoned with, but is taken to the next level and blood runs red. Without saying a single word, his stats and abilities say it all on the battlefield. The shock of seeing this man for the first time on this map almost killed me. In comparison to your units at this point, the Black Knight is untouchable. Just look at what happens to any of your units if they are caught by this guy. They are dead. End of story. Rather than just saying how strong the Black Knight is, the chapter demonstrates the gap in power through gameplay. It perfectly compounds on top of his pre-established cinematic characteristics, creating just a perfect harmony that makes the Black Knight one of the most intimidating villains in the series. As the backdrop for the final moments, the Black Knight really sets the tone as you arrive at the ship to finish this chapter, and after seizing the ship, we see Ranulph try to take a go at the Black Knight, and we even get a glimpse of the Black Knight's crit animation just to show off, with Ranulph getting absolutely slaughtered before being saved by Sephiroth. And I just want to note how they used the in-game battle engine to portray these fights. Sure, this could be attributed to budgeting reasons, but regardless, cinematics often feel disconnected because they operate on separate rules from the actual game. But by showcasing the Black Knight's strength in both the cinematics and the game engine, it lends a feeling of legitimacy to his presence. Simultaneously in this conclusion, by showing Sephiroth stopping the Black Knight in his tracks, his character is established. Anybody able to tell the Black Knight what he can and can't do must be someone of great importance, and this was a great moment to introduce him, as the Black Knight just wreaked havoc, and Sephiroth's identity as the Prime Minister of Benyon is revealed during our first look at Ashnard. Ashnard has only been referenced in passing at this point, but we finally get some dialogue and see his full face, and just as a little tidbit at the end, Ashnard implies that somebody has infiltrated the Grail mercenaries, leading to future intrigue, and wow, it's an amazing ending to a stellar chapter. To summarize my thoughts, this chapter is just so dense with content and development. It builds the world. It reinforces the Black Knight beautifully through gameplay. It reveals Sephiroth's identity while establishing his influence. Ashnard's face is revealed, and we finally hear him speak. Then to top it all off, the chapter itself is wonderfully designed, constantly offering engaging exchanges. It comes together to form one of my favorite chapters in the entire series. Design like this is just why I love playing Fire Emblem, and I desperately hope they take another look at this chapter, maybe for some inspiration in the next entry. I hope you enjoyed this look back. This video is actually a remake of an old video from my old channel, so if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description. I'm telling you right now, this video is a much more concise version. But if you're looking for other Fire Emblem content, be sure to stick around my channel. I want to do more analysis like this in the future, and I love sharing my thoughts on stuff like this. Now for the comment question, I want to know what is your personal favorite chapter from the Fire Emblem series. And I think that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. This is Zukan of Pavise Productions, signing off. I'll see you in the next one.